Greetings and welcome to an introduction to Chinese calligraphy. Today you're going to explore basic history, an overview of some of the basic techniques, and then you're going to practice some calligraphy on your own today. So let's get started. When you think of Chinese calligraphy, you basically just need to think of just melding together words and art to express an idea. And this art dates back to the Han Dynasty. And you know the fluid strokes of dots and lines that form each character are its focus. And today you are going to learn the character Yan, which means eternity, and that contains 8 strokes and dots that all beginning calligraphers learn basically as the basis for all other calligraphy strokes. So painting and writing in China developed hand in hand because they shared a lot of the same tools and techniques. Chinese writing is composed of block-like symbols, which stand for ideas. And these characters evolved basically from pictures to move more abstract. And you'll see that in a lot of ancient societies where you have a picture representing everything, and then that changes as it kind of develops to where these pictures represent ideas. Now, we know that the Han Dynasty didn't invent writing for the Chinese. The earliest writing was found in the form of oracle bones. And if you have been paying attention in your social studies class, you'll remember that oracle bones were basically considered to be just divine answers to various questions. And so the questions, answers, outcomes, they were all recorded on these bones or turtle shells, like you're going to see on the next slide. Often a metal rod or perhaps a burning ember was heated and placed on the bone near where the question had been written, and then the shape of the crack determined the answer, and the outcome, or what followed, was sometimes written on the bone. So let's talk a little bit about the Chinese calligraphy scripts. So throughout time, five basic scripts emerged over the 2,000 years, and calligraphers designed each character to fit. So when you imagine if you have your calligraphy paper in front of you, those calligraphers would imagine that each of those characters fit into a little imaginary square, whether it composed of 1 stroke or 64 strokes. And so they would create each stroke of a character in a particular order, essentially from the left to right and from the top to bottom. So the basic scripts, the 5 scripts that emerged, were the seal script, and I'm going to show you some images of these. And so this is where you're going to have careful straight lines, and this is going to be the most closest form to the earliest Chinese writing. Then you're going to have the clerical script, which is going to be more angled strokes. This was going to be for like government documents. It was something that you could write rather easily and quickly. The standard or regular script, that was commonly used in just books and signs and things even today. The semi-cursive script, where strokes tend to run together with each character, but the artist usually fits the brush between each character. And then the cursive script is really the free and spontaneous one the artists used. They often would get away with abbreviating and abstracting characters, and things may run together. So let's talk about some tools and materials a Chinese calligrapher would need. So the 4 treasures makes up the 4 main tools or components. So you would need to have the brush, the paper, the ink stick, and the ink stone. Let's start with the brush. The brush needed to be flexible and versatile. It was made from all sorts of different types of animal hair. There was also various sizes and shapes, all depending on the type of movement that you wanted the brush to take. The paper, or sometimes silk was even used, was invented, paper was invented during the Han Dynasty. So prior to that, you know, the early calligraphers would carve into stone, they would cast on bronze, they would write it on bamboo or silk. these were either too bulky or too expensive. So eventually they moved to various types of vegetable fiber, hemp, grass, tree bark, etc. Today, as we explore our calligraphy, we're going to actually use rice paper, which was a very common form of calligraphy paper used today. The ink stick. So black ink was made from soot, and this was always pine soot was also used, mixed with glue and formed into these hard sticks. Ink compounders, they would experiment with different types of unlikely ingredients. I read somewhere that somebody added jade dust into it. And then those ink makers would often guard the recipes for making this ink stick, and they would only pass them down to their apprentice, the person that they took underneath them to learn the craft of creating the ink sticks. And then the ink stone. That was what you would use in order to use the ink stick. They would have to grind it with water on the fine grained ink stone. And the stone was one of the greatest importance because it was not only used to be able to actually create ink, but then it was also coveted for like its color and beauty and actually the grain of the stone itself. So here's a couple basics for getting started. So when you hold the brush, you're going to want to hold it about midway up from the handle. You're going to grip it somewhat like a pen, but you're going to want to leave an open space in the palm of your hand. It's almost like you're going to be holding like a tomato or a ping pong ball. And you'll hold the brush in a gentle and relaxed manner. Imagine holding, like I said, a tomato without bruising the skin. And then you're going to make sure you hold that brush at a 90-degree angle, perpendicular with your paper. Something like that picture. Okay, so if you're choosing to watch this video, you're going to move on to your writing task. And what you're going to do is you're going to imagine you're one of the 4 treasures. And so maybe you are the brush, or you are the paper, or the ink stone, or the ink stick. And you're going to write a poem from first person point of view from that treasure, really capturing how important you were in this process of writing. So you'll see your paper for a little bit more information, or you need to read the directions. And then I'll be looking forward to either working with you over at the calligraphy table so that you can practice on the symbol for eternity.